Sitting in front of me now is Scott Straus, who is a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and he is the winner of the Grawemeyer Award for Ideas for Improving World Order. Scott, welcome to the University of Louisville, first off.
Thank you so much.
And congratulations.
Thank you. It's an incredible honor. I mean, truly. I said earlier when I gave a talk that it was, it left me speechless, which is rare as a professor to be left speechless by, but it's an incredible honor, and I thank the family and the university and Chuck Ziegler and others who were part of this. So it's an incredible honor.
So the Grawemeyer Award is a big deal.
It's a huge deal. I mean, first of all, you look at other people who've won this award, and I'm incredibly humbled to be in their company, to be honest. And I think it gives a kind of recognition to the work and elevates the profile, and it's a game changer. Mm-hmm. It's a game changer.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your work. You won because of your ideas about genocide and how to stop them, particularly in Africa. Mm-hmm. So let's go back a little bit. You were based in Africa. You were a journalist in Africa, correct? So give us a little bit of that background.
Yeah, so I started out as a freelance reporter in 1995 based in Nairobi, Kenya, and I was kind of like running my own small business, and I was a stringer for a number of papers.
Like Reuters and AP, those?
Yeah, so the Houston Chronicle, San Francisco Chronicle, Baltimore Sun, and the
Toronto big papers.
Yeah, Toronto Globe and Mail. They were mid-sized dailies that at that time had their own foreign pages, but didn't have their own Africa correspondent or didn't have their own East Africa correspondent. And that was the niche that I had. And so I started out in Nairobi and started to place articles, and then eventually got bigger assignments and eventually covered the war in Congo, the first war, and that was really a story about the legacy of the genocide in Rwanda. And it was really through covering that war and what I experienced in Rwanda that, started these questions. And I kind of witnessed these massive flows of people. I found mass graves, and I'd never been exposed to that kind of violence in my previously sheltered life, and had a very lasting impact on me. And basically my career has been trying to understand how this could happen, why it could happen, and that's really what I've been doing for the last 20 years.
And the book you wrote, Making and Unmaking Nations, War, Leadership, and Genocide in Modern Africa, is that all about why genocide happens in Africa from your point of view and in Rwanda?
Yeah, so it's a book that tries to explain the phenomenon of genocide using cases in Africa. So it's the research, the empirical work is really grounded in 5 main cases in Africa. There's Rwanda, Sudan. Those are the cases of genocide. And what I do in the book is compare them to cases that could have resulted in genocide but did not. And those cases are Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, and Mali in West Africa.
So what was the difference?
So the main differences are the kind of degree of threat in war, and then a lot of the emphasis is on what I call founding narratives, the stories that leaders tell about who they are, what their community is for, what their political values are. And what I found in the genocide cases is that there was a kind of exclusionary community that those states were built on compared to the ones where there wasn't genocide, which had a more pluralistic, multi-ethnic approach to their national community.
So you either have the Christians against the Muslims or Muslims against the Christians, and the minorities are the ones out, and they're the ones that are the subjects of the genocide.
Yeah.
But I think is what you're getting at, in general terms. So I think what you're also saying is that if you have a society, a country that has multiple races, religious backgrounds, that they're better off and less likely to devolve into this war-torn genocide than others?
What I take as a baseline is you've got countries that are multi-ethnic and multi-religious. What's different is how the leaders package those communities. Like, do they say our country represents all groups? We are a country that is Christian and Muslim, Hutu and Tutsi, Northerner and Southerner, this group and that group, or do they say our country is about representing one group? We are here to stand for this group. And if they say the latter, that's a kind of major risk factor for genocide. And I trace in the book how how those decisions are made, and then what their long-term effects are.
Talking with Scott Straus, who's from the University of Wisconsin at Madison, and he is the winner of the University of Louisville's Grawemeyer Award for Ideas for Improving World Order. You're a political science professor. So from a political point of view, can the United States, China, Russia, developed countries in Europe, can they make any difference in these places around the world where genocide is happening or has happened?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what the book shows is that these policies of genocide, they're not cooked, right? They're a process. They get made over time. And I think as a process, external actors can influence the decision-making on the part of these national actors. And I think what the United States can do is sort of signal, this matters to us, we're watching, and if you go down this path, there are going to be consequences for you. I mean, that's sort of the general framework. China can do the same. Russia could do the same if it wanted to. And then I think there are a set of other policies that can be implemented that can impose costs. In other words, that can basically say, these are going to be the real consequences if you go down this path. And the maximum effort that can be taken is a military intervention. Now, military intervention is fraught with all kinds of complications and possible negative consequences, but it can protect populations if done well. So I do think that the external actors have a big part of this story. What my book does is say, let's really understand the dynamics of why it happens, and then let's try to link our policies to understanding those dynamics, right? We want to have an informed policymaking process.
You've got places in the world right now. Syria comes to mind,
Sure.
obviously, Central African Republic,
Yep.
some other places that there are wars going on,
Mm-hmm.
and there are casualties of war.
Mm-hmm.
When does that devolve into when we call it genocide? When does it cross that line and it becomes genocide?
Yeah. So genocide is an organized attempt to destroy a group. And so destroying a group means you go in and you say, look, there is this category of the population, and I'm going to dedicate my resources to eliminating them. That's genocide. Casualties of war, if you bomb a neighborhood and civilians get killed, that's more of a war crime. It's not really a genocide. And genocide is about the intentional destruction of groups. And in the book, I make the argument that has three properties. Number one, it's group selective violence, meaning it's violence targeted against specific groups. Number two, it's large-scale mass violence, meaning that it's occurring across multiple locations and over time. And number three, that the purpose of the violence is to destroy the group. And those are the distinctive qualities. In the book, that's the argument I make. In terms of international law, genocide is defined as the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, racial, religious, or ethnic group.
Got it. We're talking with the University of Louisville's Grawemeyer Award winner for Ideas for Improving World Order. His name is Scott Straus. He's from the University of Wisconsin at Madison. Maybe a couple more questions here. Are there any leaders out there, I guess particularly in Africa, right now that are teetering, perhaps in your mind, on the brink of going from conflict into just trying to ban an entire ethnic group or an entire religious group that could devolve into genocide?
Yeah, I think probably two of the biggest cases that people are in Africa that they're paying attention to is, number one is South Sudan. So South Sudan is the newest country in the world. It started out in a very promising way, and then what started out as a leadership squabble for control of that country has really devolved into something closer to an ethnic war. And I think right now there is violence on both sides of that war against the ethnic supporters of their rivals. But I think that's one of the cases that I think people are really concerned about. The second one is Burundi, and in Burundi you have a long-running political crisis in that country and a history of genocide. And I think the question there, that is a case as well that I think people are quite nervous about. A couple other ones, Central African Republic you mentioned. I mean, that country is really fractured into multiple different armed groups.
A lot of tribal warfare going on there.
Certainly ethnic and religious.
Ethnic,
those are kind of the ones I think that are
the big
most,
ones.
the big ones that are on people's radar screens at the moment. Yeah.
So, one more time then, what does the Grawemeyer Award mean to you and your study of these issues, and what do you think it could potentially make for going forward for people to learn from you and your award?
Yeah. You know, the title of this award is you know, it's a very tall order, improving world order. But honestly, I mean, if we could have a world that didn't have genocide, or where genocide was less frequent or less intense, you know, that's improving world order. If my book can make a contribution to a world where genocide is less frequent because we understand it better, maybe in ways I can't foresee now, like, wow, that's amazing. That is incredible to me. That, you know, I would feel incredibly satisfied for my life's work. And so if my book and my research can contribute to a world where genocide happens less, that's amazing.
Very good. Scott Straus from the University of Wisconsin, congratulations.
Thank you so much.